Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We're looking at a game tonight that's probably the best Thursday night showdown that we've seen in a long time. It's the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals. They're playing in Baltimore with a 46-point total, and Baltimore are 3.5-point favorites. And in this game tonight, we're looking at teams that are both facing injuries, significant injuries. Marlon Humphrey, the top cornerback of the Baltimore Ravens, is looking doubtful tonight. And we're looking at Tee Higgins on the Bengals side. One of the top wide receivers over there on the Bengals is out tonight. And in addition to that, they're missing their edge rusher, Sam Hubbard. And on the Ravens side, they are also missing their offensive lineman, Ronnie Stanley. So we're looking at a interesting matchup as far as injuries. We got a game with huge implications as far as within the division, but also in the AFC in general. These guys are both playing for a playoff spot tonight, and both teams could make it into the playoffs, but they obviously want to win their division. Baltimore currently has a 2-game lead over Cincy, who Cincy is in the last place in the competitive division. So the question tonight, the $1 million question, is going to be which one of these teams will be able to overcome these injuries and take this game. Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heatseeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. This is a show where we break down these island games and give you some perspective from a DraftKings Showdown angle and help you build some lineups and go over the player pool and everything. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Jason Paglia, over at the Nuke the House YouTube channel. Jay has been a buddy of mine for the last couple years, aka the Sports Keg. Keg, what's going on, man?
Simon, my guy, you're one of the nicest people in the industry. I know we were at RPS together for a couple years, and I'm excited to be on. What's going on, my guy?
Not too much. Glad to have you on. We've been talking about doing this for a little while. Keg wanted to reserve his appearance for a good, solid game, and we got one tonight. We got the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals. We're looking at a 46 total with Baltimore as 3.5-point favorites. Keg, what's your read on this game? Give me it from a betting perspective.
Yeah, well, first of all, I was happy to come on today because these Thursday night Amazon games have been beyond dreadful this year, and we do finally have a decent one. Right now, I have the line accurate. I have the Baltimore Ravens about 6.5 points better than an average team on a neutral, and I have the Bengals about 4.5 points, maybe a little less than that, better than an average team on a neutral. So if you count 1.5 for home field, sometimes you could do 2 points because it's a divisional opponent, but I tend to stick to 1.5. That makes this line 3.5. Which is basically exactly where I have the line, and that's where it is right now. Now, I know that primetime unders have cashed this year at a ridiculous rate. It's actually crazy how far under these primetime games are going this year. But I kind of feel like this game could shoot out. It wouldn't shock me. Like the total opened 43.5 a couple weeks ago, yeah. And then I think on Sunday it was 44. Now we're up in that 46 range. And I agree with the move. I kind of think that this game's probably goes over tonight. As far as a side, man, it's tough. I would probably look to take the 3.5 with the hook with the Bengals. I have not bet a side or total yet tonight, but the line feels sharp, and I'm going to lean to the over.
Yeah, I kind of am with you on that. I think this game definitely has the potential to shoot out. We're missing some key defensive pieces on each side too. We're looking at Sam Hubbard is out on the Bengals side, and we're looking at Marlon Humphrey, he's currently doubtful, but I think he's going to be pretty much out on
Right.
the Ravens side. Yeah, and linebacker Trenton Simpson is out. As far as the offensive line on each team, I think they're each no. It looks like the Ravens are missing Ronnie Stanley, but as far as the Bengals side, they're missing Sam Hubbard, and Hendrickson right now is currently questionable, and Bengals are also missing Tee Higgins, so they're missing a major offensive piece too. But I mean, this is shaping up to me to be more of, like these defenses are very very much weakened tonight. What do you think of that, Keg?
Yeah, I agree. Now, in terms of weapons for both teams, I know Duvernay is questionable for Baltimore. And other than that, it's basically just Tee Higgins not playing, right?
Yeah, Tee Higgins is out, and then the rookie Andre Iosivas.
Right.
He's out,
I know
supposedly.
he's out too, right? Oh,
Yeah,
actually, he
he's
was
out.
a full part. Well, it says Wednesday he was a full participant in practice, I think.
Okay.
I could
The latest.
I could. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, did not practice. You're right. Yeah, you're right. He's out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So him being out too is interesting because that's gonna make Trenton Irwin a lot more interesting. He was already interesting without T. He's basically been a 1-for-1 replacement whenever Tee Higgins has been out. So
Yep.
he was already advanced on the radar. But now we're talking about a situation where their number 4 or number 5 wide receiver is out as well. So yeah, I mean the target situation should be pretty condensed. I would look for tight end Tanner Hudson to be heavily involved tonight too, or not heavily, but more so involved than normal. He's a guy that has been getting a decent amount of targets recently, and a situation like this, he's a pass catching tight end. He's going to be getting a lot more opportunity with that rookie wide receiver out, I think, too. Keg, what do you think? What do you think there?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you said. The only thing I would add would be obviously Ja'marr Chase is a cheat code. Burrow's always going to look for him, but Tyler Boyd's targets always rise when Tee Higgins doesn't play. In the 3 games before Higgins went down, he was averaging about 5 targets a game. In last week's loss to the Texans, he was targeted 12 times. I think he went like 8 or 9 for 120. Now, do I expect him to go for 8 for 120 again? Not really, but I think he's targeted enough to get over that current number, I think, of 45.5 receiving yards. So I agree with you. I think Irwin's a 1v1 in terms of they usually just plug him in when Higgins doesn't play. And I'm with you, man. I think the majority of the targets will be between those 4 guys: Chase, Boyd, Irwin, and Hudson. And then I guess you can count Mixon in there, but he doesn't really catch a ton of balls out of the backfield.
Right. Yeah. And Mixon has a tough matchup tonight against the Baltimore run defense. But I will say, like, in these situations where you got like a passing offense that can be threatening, and the run game has a harsher matchup, a lot of times, like, these defenses will say, fuck it, and they'll abandon the run defense a little bit and start, focusing in on Chase, because they know if they shut Chase down, they don't have a Higgins on the other side. So that could leave things, pretty open for Mixon tonight, even though he's in a bad matchup, to make a significant impact on the game tonight. He's a guy that I kind of been, playing around with, like, as far as lineups go. He could be a key element in this game tonight if they're able to get him going with maybe some little dump offs and stuff. If Chase has been guarded pretty well. Just a general note on this game in general. The defensive coordinator over on the Ravens side has been excellent against Joe Burrow and these Bengals. He's been able to pretty much not shut down Burrow, but he's been pretty successful against Burrow. And you can tell, Keg, right before this guy joined, the year before this guy joined, like Burrow threw like 500 yards and 5 touchdowns on the Bengals, and he hasn't even been close to having a monster game against the Bengals ever since this new DC is in town. What do you make of that situation?
God, even still, right? If you look at the way, obviously Burrow started the year injured, we know that. So I think his early numbers are a bit skewed. And I think the same could be said for Mixon, because Burrow was such a non-threat earlier in the year that it allowed defenses to really key in on Joe Mixon early in the year. But I think now, when you look at 4 of the last 5 weeks, Burrow's thrown for at least 280. 3 of the last 5 weeks, he's thrown for at least 320. I kind of think that Burrow is going to have a night tonight to keep them in the game, because I don't see how Cincinnati is going to stop Baltimore from running the ball and scoring. That I don't know, man. I think that this could be one of the exceptions to the rule. I could see Burrow really needing to throw the ball a ton tonight to keep them in the game, because the one thing that I do think Baltimore will not have a problem with tonight is scoring. And I think that's going to make Burrow have to throw the ball a ton. So I kind of think that he has a game tonight.
Yeah, I tend to lean with you there too. Just I don't care who weapons are, because we've seen Joe Burrow like this. The team of the Bengals, they just have this swag to them. And anytime they are kind of in a situation where they're underestimated or they have the odds against them, they seem to, pull off these wins. And tonight is a perfect example of a situation where it's a must-win situation for these guys. They're last place in the division, and they just need if they get a win tonight, then they're basically only one game out. And they can't afford to lose to the Ravens again tonight either, because then they'll be 0-2 against the Ravens, and any sort of tiebreakers or anything like that, they're basically shooting themselves in the foot. Right. So I think from a real life football perspective, like this is way more of a must win for the Bengals, I think.
Without question. Ravens. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. Like in terms of player props that I was thinking about betting tonight, we've had a lot of success over on my site with like laddering player props of the people that we think are really going to crush. Like we were on Tyreek Hill 100, 150 plus before anybody was this year. And he was doing it every week. I kind of think I'm going to be on Joe Burrow 275 plus, 300 plus at 3-1, maybe even 325 plus for a sprinkle at like 7 or 8-1 or whatever the current number is, because I really do think that he's going to be. Their backs are against the wall, and they're not going to get it done running the football against Baltimore. They're top 10 in rushing yards allowed this year. That's just like, if I'm backing running backs tonight, I'm backing Justice Hill. I'm backing Gus Edwards. I'm backing Lamar Jackson, really, in terms of like anytime touchdowns. I'm staying away from that on the Cincy side. Like, I'm not looking to back Mixon tonight, but I am looking to back Burrow, Chase, Boyd, and those guys.
Yeah, and you know what I like about this team, too, Keg? Like they're a young team. They have a cockiness to them. And there's a huge thing hanging over their heads in that they have not won, I think, a primetime road game in something like 13 games. It's a streak that's been going on. Yeah, it's been going on since like 2012 or something like that. It's a ridiculously long streak. But I heard mention on one of the local podcasts that the Zach Taylor is going to use that as motivation for these guys. And like Joe Burrow and Ja'marr Chase, they look for stuff like this to get them fired up. Like if you look at those clips from when they were in the Super Bowl, right? You remember that clip of the team? They were walking together. Like there was like a video of them walking together, and they looked and they stopped each other because they saw a crack around, and they said like, "Okay, we got to go around the crack." Like a superstitious team like that.
No, I never saw that. No.
Oh, it's a great clip. It was like in the Super Bowl. They were walking together in the town, and they came across like a crack or something, and they just like they all stopped and they walked around the crack, right? Like this is a team that takes those little things seriously, right? So I could totally see them getting motivated by wanting to break this losing streak of being on the road in prime time and just putting an end to that streak. I could see that as being an extra motivating factor for these guys to get them even more fired up. If you're looking for like a little bit more drive to go on the Bengals side, I do like the Bengals in this game spread. I mean, Keck, like I like the Bengals. Yeah, I know. I used to have him on the show. I like the I like the Bengals to win outright. To be honest with you, like just because I see these guys play like the past couple years, right? I've picked them to win the division and to win the conference. I lost last year, but I won the year before on that bet. And the reason why I kind of gravitate towards this team is I just like their attitude. They got that great like winning attitude, that confidence to them.
They got swag. Yeah. They think who they are. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that loss to Houston last weekend really put them behind the eight ball. They just the division keeps winning. They can't afford to lose tonight, really.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a must-win situation for the Bengals tonight. They're a team that plays with confidence. Even though they're down Tee Higgins, they're a team that can get creative and figure out different ways to get Chase into the game. We may see some more like, okay, now this is an interesting little nugget here, Keg. As far as the first few games where Joe Burrow was hurt, the most success that he had from a fantasy point perspective was against the Ravens. And I don't know if that was maybe because they were forced to throw the ball short, which the Ravens obviously weren't used to with Joe Burrow, but maybe they learned something from the way that they had to, kind of approach that game and the success that, Joe Burrow had in that particular game. Maybe they take a page out of that, knowing they're down Tee Higgins. They have Chase running shorter routes tonight and trying to get him to go more with his yak. But I could see, Chase having, just a bunch of, short targets mixed in tonight as a way to kind of attack this defense, and then, pick their moments for the longer balls where they don't have to worry about Marlon Humphrey. But what kind of play style do you envision for them tonight? With how are the Bengals going to beat the Ravens tonight if we want to choose a Bengals side to win tonight?
Oh, God, I really think that Joe Mixon has to be effective off play action. I think that Chase has to catch everything tonight that comes his way, and I think that they're gonna have to catch Baltimore, I think, sleeping for over the top of that defense, probably more than once tonight, I think, because I just don't see how they stop Baltimore from scoring. I think Baltimore is going to have success. And I mean, listen, Baltimore plays zone like 70% of the time, I think. And Joe Burrow's number one in completion percentage against the zone this year. So I think that Burrow's going to get off. I don't think they lose a ton with Tee Higgins being out either. Do they lose depth? Yes, but Tyler Boyd's a really underrated 3 in this league. So I don't think that their normal offensive style probably doesn't skip a beat. I mean, they didn't lose that Texans game for lack of offense, right? So I think that they're Burrow's going to have to probably throw for fucking 350 tonight. I think that Mixon's going to have to catch them sleeping on play action one for a touchdown. Now he only has 4 TDs on the year, but I think he probably has to get in the end zone tonight if they want to win, because this game could be like 31-28. Like I really think that it could be that type of game, But
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of think for fantasy wise, if you're backing the Bengals tonight in fantasy, you're going to want them playing from behind, because I think that's when all the stats probably come. But, man, Baltimore's really good at keeping you off the field. They're third in rushing plays, as a team this year. So I think that Burrow's going to have to do his damage like Mahomes does sometimes, or these 3 to 4 minute drives that get them scores and get them off the field, because Baltimore's probably going to eat a ton of clock tonight. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, they're 30th in rushing yards allowed. So I think Baltimore is going to eat on the ground all night long. So I do think that if Cincy's going to stay in this game, they're going to have to score fast, because they're going to have a hard time getting Baltimore off the field.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that Cincy's going to have to score fast, because they're going to want to have Lamar throwing more than they run, because like you said, like they have like these ridiculously long drives, and if Cincinnati doesn't score quick, then they'll be behind the 8 ball already, because you said,
right, they can't afford 3 and outs tonight, that's for sure. Right. Because they might have the ball for 3 minutes in the first quarter. Baltimore has 16 rushing touchdowns this year. Cincinnati has 4. They move the ball at an incredible rate on the ground. So I think that they're going to have to score, and they're going to have to score fast.
Yeah, and that's an interesting note, because we're in a situation here tonight where Cincinnati does have a weak defense against the run, and they're allowing 22 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. I'm looking at the running back position from week 3 on. I'm taking out the first 2 weeks when I give you that 22 DraftKings point number. And we're in a situation here where we have an emerging running back on the Ravens side. We got Gus Edwards, who's been having a pretty good year. He's had in 3 of the past 4 weeks, he scored over 17 DraftKings points, including a 29-point performance against Arizona. So they're completely capable of running. And then we have this emerging guy, where's he at? Keaton Mitchell, who is having some crazy numbers the last couple of weeks. He hasn't been getting a ton of attempts, but he's been making the most of those attempts. He's a very explosive player. 23.5 points in week 9, 13.5 points last week off of 3 attempts and 2 targets. Wow. Yeah, wow. And this dude,
he's averaging 14 yards a carry. Is that real life?
Yeah, he's been ridiculous with the touches that he's been getting. And he came out of nowhere, right? Obviously, he's shown some explosion. And when he was interviewed in a press conference, Harbaugh was basically talking about how he wants to get Mitchell a little bit more involved now that they've kind of let the genie out of the bottle. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him involved, because especially with the Bengals are a team that's giving up, I think, like the second most explosive plays in the league. And if you have an explosive runner like Keaton Mitchell, and we're talking about a game plan where Baltimore is going to want to run the ball as much as possible, this guy Keaton Mitchell is going to be very interesting when you're making your lineup decisions in tonight's game.
Do you think he takes touches away from Justice Hill?
I think Justice Hill more so than Gus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because even a guy like Hill has 3 rushing touchdowns this year. He could and it doesn't even have to be a blowout script for Justice Hill to. I mean, he's averaging, I think it was 2.5 red zone carries a game, and he's got like 43% snap share. So I think that Justice Hill could be a low key sneaky play in fantasy.
Yeah, he's another interesting one. Like Keg was saying, like he had 13 attempts versus Seattle. That was back in week 9. As far as targets, it looks like Keaton Mitchell might be taking over the that run work. It might be Justice Hill might be, he might be splitting those early downs with Gus at this point, and then maybe Keaton Mitchell is the the third down back and the passing down back. The way that these numbers are kind of looking. But 2 targets for Mitchell last week. We saw the genie out of the bottle. They know that he's an explosive runner now.
Right.
What do we see out of Justice Hill? With Justice Hill last week, we saw 0 targets and 2 rush attempts. So maybe it was like a hot hand type of situation last week.
Sure.
Obviously, that could go either way. I think Gus Edwards probably has the most secure role. Obviously, 11 attempts last week, 5 attempts the week before that. He's also gets some passing work too. He had 1 target, and a few weeks ago he had 2 targets. But Gus Edwards, man, like that little stretch that he went on with 21 points, 29 points, and 17 points. If he goes under owned, because of Keaton Mitchell, Gus Edwards makes a good sneaky play because he's only 1,400 more than Keaton Mitchell. But the projections that I'm seeing right now have Mitchell at about 17% ownership, which is really low for a showdown slate. So Keaton Mitchell is definitely my favorite of the running back plays on the Baltimore side. Maybe Justice Hill if I'm kind of looking for like a little more salary relief. But Keaton Mitchell is interesting tonight for sure, especially with what Keg and I were talking about with Baltimore is going to be focused on that run game tonight, and they have a good run matchup against Cincy. And
when it comes to DFS, I defer to you. Obviously, I'm the sports bettor, but that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and Keg, your thoughts on are there any rushing props that you're looking at for the Baltimore side in this game?
Yeah, I was looking at maybe taking a shot on Lamar Jackson anytime touchdown, maybe Gus Edwards anytime touchdown, because it's really hard for one of them not to get there with the style of offense that this team plays. And more often than not, you can get them both home. So in terms of actual like rushing yards or rushing attempts, probably not. Because like you said, Gus Edwards, if I was going to back somebody's rushing attempts tonight, it would probably be his rushing attempts. But even his number felt a little sharp to me. It is, let me check to see what it is right now. Actually, I don't see it. Let me check FanDuel.
Yeah, and if we look at Lamar's, from a DraftKings perspective, these last few weeks, he had 15 points against Cleveland, 12 points against Seattle, and 12 points against Arizona. He hasn't been a lock this season to put in, like showdown slates, but against these Bengals, he scored 23 points in week 2. So he's had some success against the Bengals. And as far as like previous performances, last year in the first game they played against each other, he had 16 DraftKings points. He wasn't there in the second game they played against each other. The quarterback who subbed in for Lamar got about 10 DraftKings points against this Bengals defense. So the Bengals have been just as effective almost against Lamar as the Ravens have been against Joe Burrow, which is interesting.
Yeah, so I take it back. I actually don't mind. The number's 10.5 now. I actually don't mind Gus Edwards' rushing attempt number at 10.5 He's gone over that number in almost every game this year, I think, but one. And I think that a large part of them beating Cincinnati tonight is keeping that offense off the field. And I don't mind that, actually. I don't mind 10.5 rushing attempt.
Do you think Keaton Mitchell is the reason why it's at 10.5?
I mean, he could be, I guess, but how many carries did he have last game?
Last game, let's see.
I know he had that one game where he had like 9 for like 120, or he had like a big game, but outside of that game.
Yeah, he's really only come on in the last 2 weeks, but 2 weeks ago he had 9, and then last week he had 3. So I think like on top of that, like what the coach, Harbaugh was saying about maybe utilizing him some more. I don't know. Like it's weird that like what did Gus have for rush attempts against the Bengals in the first time they played each other? He had 10 in the first time they played each other. So maybe that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, it could be. But I mean, like if you look at his carry number, since week 3, he's not gone over that number once.
Yeah.
So I mean I don't mind that. He probably gets there. But like other than that, probably not.
Yeah, because I think if you're building if I was building a pro Ravens script, I would probably lean more towards Gus Edwards because obviously like he's going to be playing more if they have a lead. I think if they are playing from behind, that's where Keaton Mitchell comes in. And the way that I lean, like I think that the Bengals can take this game. I think that I'll probably have more exposure to Mitchell tonight than Gus Edwards. I think Gus Edwards is going to be in play tonight as a captain if you're leaning on the Ravens side to win, because the Ravens are going to need to keep the Bengals off the field, just like Keg was mentioning. And that is going to be good for Gus Edwards because Gus Edwards is a grinder. He's going to be grinding that ball. He's going to be grinding the time off the clock. He's going to be keeping those Bengals off the field. He's going to be keeping the Bengals from building that early lead that's going to force the Ravens to get uncomfortable and pass the ball more. And yeah, Gus is what you want in a Ravens winning lineup, I think.
You know what's interesting, Simon? Bet365 has Keaton Mitchell's rushing yard number at 37.5. Which is only 10 yards less than Gus Edwards when the guy had 3 carries last game. That blows my mind. There's no way this dude is going to average 14 yards a rush. Like that's not going to continue. That's Candyland numbers. You know what I mean? I mean, 37.5 is a big number for a third string running back.
That sounds like, like
you could say fourth running back if you count Lamar.
Yeah.
Justice Hill's rushing number is down to 10.5. So I think the books agree with you that if Keaton Mitchell's going to be the third guy tonight and not Justice Hill, but is he going to get enough carries to get you to 37.5? Yeah.
That's going to be tough. Is it anytime yards or is it just rushing yards?
Just rushing.
Yeah. That's going to be, that's weird. Yeah. So, I think, they're trying to tell us that, Keaton is going to be, worked a lot more into the game plan because maybe, just how impressive he's been, and the Ravens aren't going to be able to afford to let him stay off the field too much, but also those explosive plays that the Bengals are giving up on top of it. They're giving up a lot of explosive plays. So maybe they think that there's a good matchup for Mitchell in this game tonight. But
Okay. I was just going to ask about what you were talking about the game script. Do you see a scenario where the Bengals win just going away tonight? I I don't. Like, do you think that they could win this game by 2 touchdowns tonight, like handily?
No. Yeah. And I'm not
No,
seeing
right?
that. Yeah. I'm seeing kind of a, like a game where the Bengals take an early lead, right? Because they're capable of doing that, and they're going to need to do that. So I
Okay.
see them taking an early lead. I see the Ravens, getting back into it. Maybe we go into halftime separated by a field goal or something like that, and then I think it's kind of a back and forth situation, maybe in the second half. And I think the game ultimately is going to be decided in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah. So like even if that's how you see Cincinnati winning, I do like that Gus Edwards rushing attempt number. That feels a little low. Unless Keaton Mitchell's going to get a way bigger carry share than he has recently. I mean, I guess that's possible, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think Edwards is safe to get to 11 carries tonight.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think Edwards is going to be used frequently tonight, but I think that Keaton is going to get a decent amount of work. But I think Edwards is the guy that's going to be relied on to try to get rid of as much clock as possible tonight. So
Yeah,
if we're looking at like some of these other players, Keg, I like Mark Andrews a lot. I think he's got a good matchup tonight.
Love him, Simon. I bet over 4.5 receptions last night at plus 110.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that one. And just on top of that, like Cincinnati's been one of the worst teams against the tight end position. So they're allowing.
One of the guys in the Nuke the House Discord said that they were 30th in against 30th in DVOA against tight ends this year.
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
I mean,
really bad. Just allowing like 15. I mean, it's the perfect matchup for Andrews. And then on top of it, like here's Andrews or the tight end in general's last 3 games against Cincy. Back in 2022, they allowed 23 points to Andrews and 21 points to Likely in the second game. And then this year, they allowed 15.5 DraftKings points to Andrews in that first matchup between them. Like Andrews is one of my favorite plays on the slate tonight, Keg, and I like him he might be my favorite captain option tonight too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're talking about it, when the Baltimore Ravens are throwing the football, they're throwing the ball to 2 people. It's Zay Flowers and it's Mark Andrews. They have almost double the target share of Beckham, of Nelson Aguilar, and there was somebody else too. Rashad Bateman. So I do think that the majority of the production from wideouts is going to be Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. I mean, it's pretty clear cut with the Ravens. That's what they do. It's Andrews, Zay Flowers, a little bit of Beckham, and a ton of Lamar and Edwards running the football. That's basically how they try to win every game. So I like the call, and I think Zay Flowers is going to be busy, especially in any kind of game script where you have Cincinnati leading this game. I think that Zay Flowers is going to be just as integral a part of the offense as Mark Andrews at that point.
Yeah, and I talked about it with spread a few times because we've done a couple of these Baltimore games. The Ravens have been very, very good about getting Zay Flowers worked into their game plans, like creating plays for him. Just being creative with how they work him into the offense, making sure to design a bunch of plays for him and everything. And it showed up in his early season targets. He had 10 targets in week 1, 5 in week 2, 10. A few double-digit target performances in there. The last few weeks, he's had 6 targets. He had 1 target against Seattle, but they blew Seattle out. And then he had 7 against Arizona. I would look for, that maybe like 6 or above targets for Zay Flowers tonight. What do you think about that, Kick?
Yeah, I agree. 6 feels about right to me. Maybe like you always talk about. It all depends on the game script and how this game's going to play out. But I think any kind of competitive game, I think that Flowers and Andrews could have 10 targets each. To be honest,
Yeah.
like it just depends. We know that Baltimore is run heavy. That's what Harbaugh is. It's always run first. But if for some reason that's not working tonight, which I think it will be working when you consider how bad Cincinnati has been against the run this year, I do think that they're probably going to be able to run at will. But any kind of competitive game where they can stop Gus Edwards, I think that Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers have a day. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. Um, some of these other guys, Tyler Boyd, Keg hit on him a little bit. What's your take here on Boyd? You think that? So we saw 12 targets last week. We know that Tyler Boyd is an integral part of this offense, at least as a wide receiver 3. Before Higgins and Chase got to this team, Tyler Boyd was a wide receiver 1. So
Right.
he had experience as being the guy. So for him to be moving into that number 2 spot, he's been there before. So he's perfectly capable of handling 7-8 targets in a game or whatever it ends up being. In the early part of the season where Burrow was hurt and he was forced to throw short, we saw 8 targets in week 2. We saw 9 targets in week 3, 7 targets in week 4. Against Baltimore, he had 8 targets earlier this year. Now, in the past, with Boyd, he's scored last year. He scored 6 points, DraftKings points, and 10 DraftKings points, and then this season he's already scored 11 DraftKings points. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tyler Boyd hit those double digits tonight
I'm a
against
I'm a big
Baltimore.
Tyler Boyd guy today. I'm with you. I think that everything you said is right. He has a ton of experience, and I think that the transition for him to go into that Tee Higgins role is seamless because
Right.
he's been that guy before many times. And I'm always programmed, Simon. Like I'm not the guy that always like I get why everybody will bet Ja'marr Chase tonight over 81.5. By the time the game goes live, it's probably going to be like 83.5. Everybody's going to pour in because the guy's a cheat code. I get it. But I like to back guys like Tyler Boyd, who I did at 44.5. Right now, the number is 46.5 at DK. But yeah, I think that he's going to get a ton of work tonight. Now, like I said, does he go 8 for 120 tonight? Probably not. But
Yeah.
I do think that he can go 5 for 75 tonight, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. So yeah, I'm all over Tyler Boyd tonight. I'm with you. I think he'll be the second most important player on offense for that team after Ja'Marr Chase tonight.
Yeah. And Tyler Boyd, he had that disappointing drop last week. So that Burrow will he's the type of quarterback that's going to give him another shot, and try to build that confidence back up. We've seen it in the past with Burrow helping out these receivers like that. So yeah, don't be surprised to see, like Keg said, Tyler Boyd be the second most targeted guy on the Bengals tonight. And the competition that he's got for those secondary targets. We're talking about Trenton Irwin.
Right.
Trenton Irwin's been solid. He's been solid when Higgins has been out. But his upside is maybe like 13, 14 DraftKings points, which is pretty good for like a 4,400 salary. But if I'm making the decision between Irwin and Boyd, it's really ultimately going to come down to how much salary I have left when I'm deciding between those two. But I prefer Boyd, and I don't mind putting Irwin in if I can't afford Boyd. But what are your thoughts there on Irwin, Keg?
I think that Irwin could fill that normal Tyler Boyd role when Tee Higgins is healthy. But man, I mean, I see. Like, I don't know what 1,400, how important 1,400 is in terms of salary. like when you're building your lineups, because I'm not a big DFS guy. But that being said,
Mhm.
I think that Tyler Boyd probably at least doubles the production of Trent Irwin tonight. So, like, I
Yeah.
don't know what that means to a lineup and how that works out, but God, I would want to find the extra salary for Tyler Boyd if it was between him and Trent Irwin. But that being said, I agree with you. The target share is going to be very condensed on this team. It's going to be Chase and Boyd, obviously, and then other than that, I mean, who's really going to get the ball? Like, how much production do you see out of Tanner Hudson tonight or Irv Smith? Like, what do you think about those guys tonight?
I kind of lean towards Tanner Hudson. Let's take a look at him real quick. Tanner Hudson's down at 2,600. He's expensive though. Like that is expensive for Tanner Hudson. But like, look at the last couple weeks he's had. He had 7 targets with Tee Higgins out against Houston,
Right.
and he had 5 targets against Buffalo. Now the thing with Tanner Hudson is he hasn't been running a whole bunch of routes. So basically, like Hudson has been efficient, like hyper efficient with his target share. So if he gets more routes tonight against Baltimore, like I could see him having a significant night. I could see him being, the guy that you need. And I don't think his ownership is going to be too high. What do you think, Keg, on Tanner Hudson's opportunity tonight?
Well, I'm with you on the fact like he had 7 targets last week in that game without Higgins, but man, he's there isn't a whole he averaged about 5 yards per reception. I kind of think that you probably have like long play breakaway capability with Trent Irwin that you just don't have with Tanner Hudson, right?
Yeah. I think Tanner Hudson's more of like a target magnet, and Irv Smith is more of the explosive target guy.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I mean, I don't mind. His number's 20.5.
Yeah.
God, that's pretty low considering that Higgins isn't playing. But I mean, in a game where he had 6 receptions, he only had 33 yards. So I mean, good.
Get these targets from Irv Smith. Like last week, he had 1 target against Houston. He had 4 against Buffalo and 4 against San Francisco. So Hudson has been more effective at earning those targets than Irv Smith. Irv Smith has kind of the name brand recognition, but I think Tanner Hudson has been outperforming him. Like Joe Burrow is seeing something that he likes with Hudson more so than Smith, who's struggled to gain anything this year.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That just looking at the stat line, that makes sense,
Yeah.
So
I'm with you. Yeah, but I think both those guys are interesting in this matchup. Like they're both like Baltimore's middling against tight ends. They're allowing 10 DraftKings points again to the tight end position, so that's basically a middling situation. Now going back to Boyd, they have been allowing 19 points a game, DraftKings points a game to the slot position, which is just outside of that top 10. The most points allowed to the position. And Boyd, from what I see, the middle of the field is the weakest point from a DVOA perspective on Baltimore's defense. So that just adds, I think, to that case of Tyler Boyd too. Keg. This kind of builds more towards Boyd there.
Any Drew Sample love tonight?
No, he was I think he was the one that you needed to be in the winner last Monday against Buffalo. He scored 12 DraftKings points against Buffalo, but like Sample to me seems like more of like one of those bumbling tight ends, like who's going to get like the lucky catch every once in a while. Maybe he gets a red zone target or whatever. But I think Hudson's like a bigger, like more athletic guy, isn't he? Like, wouldn't Hudson be a better red zone target, do you think?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, Drew Sample hasn't done a whole lot this year. I mean, 9 games played. He's got 8 receptions. So
yeah, so barely one reception a game. So I think. Yeah, go ahead, Keg.
No, I was just going to say less than 1. He's averaging about 1.1 targets a game.
Yeah. So the way that Tanner Hudson has been coming on lately, just getting targeted like every time he's on the field almost. Like I just think that builds a strong case for who Joe Burrow's preference is as far as those tight ends on guys to throw to. And I don't think it's any coincidence that, like his target share has been going up like these last few weeks as they finally, I think they're finally realizing that, hey, maybe Irv Smith isn't the guy that we thought he was going to be when we brought him in,
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree.
Let's see. One other note with Hudson too. Let's look at when he got those targets, because I think he got them after the bye. Yeah, he got them after the bye week. So that kind of tells me too that was an intentional thing, that they wanted to work him more into the game plan as a midseason adjustment. So that makes Hudson interesting too, I think.
I mean, he's getting almost 5 targets a game in the 4 games this year. So that makes sense. And that number is pretty low. Like his receiving yard number is 20.5. But I mean, Drew Sample's receiving yard number is 4. So I mean, the sports books agree with you, my friend.
Right on. Yeah. I think Tanner Hudson is going to be an interesting play. Keep him in your player pool tonight. But Keg, real quick, I want to give a plug to people to subscribe to our YouTube channels. Like, hit the like button first on this video. Looking for 15 likes on this video, and then I'll put out a shorter video with my favorite plays on the slate as we get closer to game time, get some more of that news coming in. But make sure you're subscribing to this channel. Make sure you're subscribing to Nuke the House, because Keg goes on just about for every one of these games, right, Keg? Why don't you tell everybody about your live betting that you do?
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel, Nuke the House YouTube. I was with Simon over at RPS for a couple years, ran the betting side with JJ. And basically, we go live when I'm healthy because I have a bad back. But we've been live for basically every NFL game this year but 3. We go live for all the UFC events, all the NASCAR races. And it's like 25 hours basically of live betting content per week. And I'm really good at it. Like, we're like, I bet for a living for the last 14 years. On Monday night, we had 11 winners. Everybody crushed. So if you like money, I suggest everybody check out Nuke the House YouTube. We're full of profitable bettors that really grind right now for free to make other people money. Also, in the on our Twitter account at Nuke the House, there's a Nuke the House Discord. We got about 500 people in there right now. We talk sports betting 24/7, and it's free to get in there. And I suggest everybody hop in with an invite on our Twitter account, and your ROI should increase instantly.
Yeah, I've been working with Keg for, I worked with him for a few years at the other place, and just been friends with him ever since. And I can tell you from watching Keg's content that if you're not subscribed to that YouTube channel, then you're going to be leaving money on the table. And definitely make sure to subscribe over there. Subscribe over here too. Spread a Stare, who is one of Keg's partners over in those shows and everything, is on this show pretty often. We go over a lot of these games and build a lot of lineups, and we've had a lot of success with picking out these captains and these game scripts. haven't hit on the exact player combo yet, but we've come close a bunch of times. But yeah, definitely like working with Keg and getting his crew on here too.
Appreciate it, bud.
All right, so let's look real quick at the defenses and kickers, and then we can jump into building a lineup. Now, the defenses I don't have a ton of interest in tonight because I think along the lines of Keg, I think it's going to be more of an offensive type of game tonight, and I think the defenses are just going to be working to try to slow down the other side, and I don't see a lot of DraftKings points there, but the kickers, I'm pretty interested in Justin Tucker tonight. Keg, listen to these numbers from Justin Tucker in the last few games that he's played against the Bengals. I'm using the last 2 years as a sample size, just because that's when Mike McDonald started over as the defensive coordinator over on the Ravens. Now, Tucker last year in game 1 scored 16 points. Game 2, he scored 12 points. And game 1 of this season, he scored 11 points. Now, he's had a lot of success, and I think that kind of goes with the script that Keg and I were talking about earlier, where we think it's going to be a back and forth. It's a type of game that could easily be decided by field goals, in addition to touchdowns. I think there's not going to be a lack of either in this game. But what are your thoughts here on Tucker when the mood on Tucker is down a little bit? Because he's missed a few of those 50-yarders this year, Keg.
Listen. He might be the best kicker in NFL history. So Justin Tucker could do no wrong in my eyes. I'm with you. I like him as an option tonight. One of the guys on my Discord brought up a great bet on FanDuel. They have those specials where each team to have 1 touchdown and field goal in each half. And it's like 20-1. It's somewhere around that 20-1 range normally. I think there's a great chance for that to hit tonight. I could see TDs. I could see both teams kicking field goals in each half. If I'm going to back a kicker, although Cincinnati's kicker is not bad, he's one of the better ones in the league for sure. But I'm with you. I like the Justin Tucker call. Now I don't know. I know some people get crazy and put kickers in the captain spot. I don't know if I'm doing that, but I mean, right. I think that he'll be productive tonight for sure. I think both probably will be, to be honest.
I think you're right. This is probably 2 of the best kickers in the NFL right now that we're talking about. Both of them have had mixed results this year too, which will keep their ownership down. But this is a classic AFC North type of matchup where you see decent amount of field goal attempts, and I think we're going to see quite a few tonight. And
do you put both kickers in the same lineup a lot when you're doing Showdown? Ever?
It depends. A lot of times, if I think it's going to be more of a mid-range type of game where they have good kickers on both sides, and I don't see a clear, way for necessarily touchdowns throughout the game. Because I think Baltimore's got a good enough defense to stop Cincinnati in the red zone a few times, and Cincinnati's got a respectable defense too, obviously. So I think both teams are capable of stopping the other side a decent amount of times in the red zone and forcing them into field goals. So tonight would be a game where I would definitely consider it, especially considering the weapons on the Cincinnati side are kind of lacking. We got Chase, Mixon, and Boyd, who we've been talking about throughout the show. But on the Baltimore side too, it's really Andrews and Flowers,
and that's it, really.
Yeah, and I could see the Bengals shutting at least one of those guys down, or at least slowing
Gus
them down.
Edwards. Gus Edwards too, right? We can't leave him out.
Yeah, exactly. Gus Edwards too. So, I could totally see this being a type of game where, you could get two kickers in there. Like if it like works out that way for you, like if you're down to a salary where your best option is putting in Evan McPherson and you already have Justin Tucker in your lineup, I wouldn't shy away from two kickers in a situation like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like
so. It. All right, Keg. So let's dig into this lineup here, and first let's do a chalky lineup. We'll let the people get a look at what a chalk lineup might look like tonight. And I'm using an optimizer for reference here. In the optimizer projections that I'm seeing tonight, it's looking like you got about even ownership if you go 4-2 on the Ravens side as opposed to 4-2 on the Cincy side. So each of those sides have about equal ownership, and then probably about half the ownership accumulating on 3-3 builds. So if you want to get different from a lineup roster construction standpoint tonight, you're going to want to go 5-1. I don't like going the 5-1 route. I'd rather go 4-2 and just try to build different with a 4-2 build, or 3-3. I don't even mind 3-3 tonight. I'm not even going to worry about roster construction just because it's too evenly distributed. So you can't really get an advantage if you're going with the dog or if you're going with the favorite.
Right.
So as far as what the optimizer is telling me, and this is going on RotoGrinders optimizer, we're looking at Lamar Jackson as the captain, which is understandable. He'll probably be the highest owned captain tonight because people love the Konami code quarterbacks as captain. From there, it's looking like the next big guys are Ja'marr Chase and Joe Burrow. So those are the three guys that the optimizer are trying to jam in. And then from there, it's just, trying to put in, some middling guys. Actually, they got Zay Flowers in too. So from there, you're looking at like middling guys. And we talked about a couple of these guys throughout the show who are interesting tonight. The optimizer likes Nelson Aguilar as one of those options and leaves you with
buy that.
Yeah, I mean, I could buy that.
I mean, out of all the guys at the bottom there, like in terms of salary, I think he's got the biggest upside for sure.
Yeah. If we're looking at the range down here, there's not a lot of dumpster diving going on tonight for like that salary relief. I'm with Keg. The only guy that I see of any interest is Nelson Aguilar. Let's take a look at his game log recently.
I mean, you only have to pay twice as much for him as Drew Sample. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, this type of situation is how Drew Sample was in the winning lineup last week, because people built the lineup, they jammed in all the studs, and then they were probably left with like a very low salary range at the bottom where they had to maybe like $800, and so they just probably rotated out that last position, and that's how they ended up with example in a lineup. But so that's a way to go if you want to go chalky. Now, Keg, if we're building a Baltimore wins build, like what is your favorite? Who do you think is going to score the most DraftKings points tonight?
Well, see, like, I don't know exactly how that works. Like, let me ask you this. If Burrow throws for 300, 2 TDs tonight, right? But Ja'marr Chase goes for 2 TDs and $140. Like, who's getting more points there?
Chase would have more points by probably a long shot, just because.
So I would say Chase and the captain, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't mind that. Get Chase and the captain there. If we're gonna have Chase and the captain, the beauty of Chase and the captain is we're not married to putting Burrow in there, because we've seen how successful the Ravens defense has been against Burrow. So like Burrow put up, maybe like 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, with the majority of that going to Chase. But if we want to put in Lamar Jackson, who we think, if we think Lamar Jackson has more upside, and maybe fade Burrow, maybe we get Andrews in there too.
I like it.
Yeah, so we don't need to have Burrow in a lineup tonight just because of the upside of all these other weapons. So you can break the common rule of putting your quarterback in with your wide receiver captain and go in a different direction tonight. So that's going to leave us with about 4,600 in salary per guy left. But is there any other guys that we were talking about the run game, Keg, so maybe we put a running back in here. Which one of these running backs do you like?
I think Gus Edwards has a better day than Joe Mixon for sure.
Okay. So we got Gus Edwards in here. Do you like Gus Edwards, you think, in this build as opposed to Keaton Mitchell?
Well, if we're going with if the game script is going to be, Cincinnati wins and by a decent margin, I guess you could put Keaton Mitchell in there. You're saying instead of Gus Edwards?
I think with this one we're going more of a like a Baltimore wins type of situation.
Oh yeah, so then, I would say definitely. Well, would you rather have Mitchell or would you rather have Justin Tucker?
I think if we're gonna have Gus Edwards in there, I mean, I would probably lean towards. I like Mitchell's upside a lot more, but I think if we're building a script where Gus Edwards is grinding out that clock, and we got Andrews in there is going to need to get his, so he's going to need to score a touchdown. I think in that situation we're running kind of low on touchdowns that we can give out to a guy like Mitchell, so it might be more of a lean on Tucker, I think, in that situation. What do you think there, Kick?
I'll buy that. Yeah, I like that logic. I'm with you.
Okay, so if we do that, we're left with 1,500. We're left in that Aguilar situation again.
God, it's going to come down to Aguilar tonight, huh? Jesus.
But the beauty of this build is, Keg, is that we could just flip out Edwards and we could put in Keaton Mitchell.
Right.
And maybe we're saying that, it's more of a back and forth. And that's why, like Amar's in there and he's throwing to Andrews, he's throwing to Mitchell. And Tucker's coming in there for some help. That leaves us at least with Tanner Hudson as an option,
or Justice Hill.
Yep.
Oh no, you have Mitchell in there. Oh, you already have Mitchell in there. Though.
Yeah, I think if we're doing this, maybe we take Justin Tucker out, and maybe we put in. Let's see. We want to look. Do you like Trenton Irwin? Trent Irwin or Evan McPherson? Which one of those guys do you like more?
Oh man, that's I kind of feel like McPherson probably. What is McPherson going to need to do to outpoint a normal Irwin game when Higgins isn't in the lineup?
Let's say that Irwin. Let's project him for 11 points tonight, right? Does that sound like let's say like 5 yards or 5 catches for 50 yards for Irwin tonight, right?
Okay. I think that's probably on the high side, but we'll go with that. Okay.
Yeah, if we're generous with that, then McPherson at that point
needs what?
For 50-yard field goals is going to get him 5 points. 40-yard field goals is going to get him 4 points, and 30 or less is going to give him 3 points, and then he's going to get 1 point for every extra point.
Yeah, I would say probably McPherson at that point over Irwin.
Yeah, I like that too, and that leaves us with like options like if we wanted to go Irv Smith, if we wanted to go Tanner Hudson, we have both those options available to us.
Yeah,
we have the Bengals D available to us in that situation. So now,
do you find that's all right. I was just going to ask you a question. like a showdown question. Do you always aim to leave salary on the table? Like how does that work?
It kind of depends. Like if I'm doing a build that I think is going to be chalky, then I'll look to like maybe differentiate by leaving some salary on the table. If I have a build that uses all my salary that I really like, I'm just going to say screw it. Like I'm just doing it this way. It really is just like kind of a feel, because if you feel like you can swap out a guy to leave salary on the table, and you think that dude is a realistic path to giving you first place, then yeah, I don't mind leaving salary on the table at all. I generally don't pay too much attention to salary unless I do think it's a super chalky build. Then I'll leave that build in there, and in my rotational builds, I'll maybe swap out a guy and put in a cheaper guy, just to get like a differentiating lineup in there too. And that's going to leave salary on the table. Okay, I think in this situation, let's clear this one out, because we got a chase option here.
Right
now, my favorite captain play tonight is going to be Mark Andrews, and we know from the prop bet that you made that you like Andrews too.
Yeah.
So let's plug in Andrews into this next one, and we plug in Jackson, because I think Jackson and Chase have the highest, like raw point, highest likelihood to be the top two guys as far as a raw point perspective. So I like getting those guys in there.
Okay.
And we both like the running game of the Baltimore side. They're gonna need to use a running back in one way or another, and it's either going to be Gus Edwards or it's going to be Keaton Mitchell. Let's go with Gus Edwards in this one.
Okay.
Now that's going to leave us with $4K per person. Okay, so let's swap out Gus. Let's say it's like Keaton Mitchell tonight. Maybe it's more of a like a back and forth. That's going to leave us with 4,700 per person. Now look what that does for us, Keg. If we put in
Beckham
face, Tucker there.
Oh.
Yeah, that is a spot where I wouldn't mind using two kickers, because it leaves us with 4K left, and that puts us in McPherson's range.
Right.
So that's the type of lineup where I could see two kickers being used. And
now, do you think that this is not necessarily like a Baltimore wins game script? Do you think this could still be Cincy wins, or do you think because you're putting Mark Andrews in the captain, you're assuming that Baltimore offense has a great day?
I think it can still be a close game script. Like this
Okay.
looks like it favors like Baltimore.
Right.
But I've seen it before where if Joe Burrow is going to be just locked on Chase tonight, and let's say Chase gets 10 receptions for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, like we were talking about earlier. Right. But maybe that's like all Burrow throws maybe like 200 yards total on the day. Like that is a situation where we can look at this game script and have all these Ravens in here, but still have it like either be a close game or like maybe the Bengals are up a little bit, because they're getting, if we have McPherson in this lineup too, and maybe Chase scores 2 touchdowns and McPherson has 3 or 4 field goals,
right?
Then that puts these guys on the other side. It'd be like Jackson, he's running the ball a lot. Maybe he rushes in a touchdown. Maybe Andrews is getting a ton of PPR points. And then, maybe Tucker is getting a few field goals too. Now, like just talking through that, like that, if Chase has that huge of an output, that's going to take basically like kill Andrews' chance of being the captain. So,
right.
So, I have to be a little bit more tempered than that for Chase, but I could see this type of a build where you got like both kickers, and you got like all these weapons on, you know, like either side, as being, you know, like the type of you know, game script that could go either way still. You know what I mean?
How many entries do you play like normally for Showdown total?
It depends, like, because I try, like, this year I have had like a much less budget, so I've only been able to put in probably like 5 into the 15, but then I try to get 20 into that $3 contest.
And
Now,
how will you work in like Beckham and Bateman into those lineups? Like, you know what I mean? The guys that we
yeah.
really haven't spoke much about.
So what I'll do in that situation is, you know, I'll leave Bateman and I'll leave Beckham in my player pool. Now that's where I just go to an optimizer. I'll go to an optimizer and program it to build me like 20 lineups. And like if they make it into my lineups, then so be it. Like, but if they don't, then I'm not gonna sweat it too much. Like out of these two guys, though, like we didn't really talk about them too much. Like, what do you think of Beckham tonight, Kick?
I think he will probably be the third pass based on target share, based on opportunity share. I feel like if the third guy tonight for Baltimore catching passes, probably going to be Beckham, I would think, over
Yeah.
Bateman. Where are you at?
I'm with you on Beckham. I think this reminds me of the year that he was with the Rams, and he was written off about midway through the season, coming off of a major injury. But then he just started picking things up. Like he started getting more comfortable in that offense. His knee was starting to feel a little bit better, and he went on a tear at the end of the season.
Yep.
And he was completely overlooked. Like every week he was getting overlooked, and everybody had written him off already. Like there was a lot of take lock against him. I think you got to keep an open mind when it comes to Beckham this season, because like he could do that again. We've seen it, just like Keg said. Like the last few weeks, Detroit, he had 7 targets. He had 7 targets against Seattle. He's had a couple weak games mixed in there too. You know, so you can kind of tell yourself a story either way. But those 2 7-target games tell me that, you know, like Lamar is getting a little bit more comfortable with him, and
he's hit the end zone. He's hit the end zone a couple times this year too.
Yeah, exactly. And in the last 2 weeks, 2 weeks he's hit it. So yeah, he's definitely, you know, becoming a trusted target for Lamar. So I do like keeping Beckham in your player pool. And if you don't feel that he's getting put into your lineups enough by the optimizer, then you just bump him up a little bit, bump up his projection a little bit. If he's getting projected for like 9 points, put him up to like 13 or something like that. You know, like don't go crazy with it, because you know you don't want to overexpose yourself. But
Right.
you know, just bump him up a few points. And then Bateman has been
Pretty quiet.
I've never really been a fan of Bateman. Like I know like a lot of, you know, fantasy analysts were talking him up like his rookie year, and it just seems like he's just like disappoints like year after year. And I just, you know, like I just don't have any like real like interest in him. I just don't see. We've seen a couple upside games out of him, but I think Zay Flowers is basically, you know, taking it and run with it as far as the opportunity. And the opportunities are limited in that Baltimore offense just because of how much they run the ball. But with Bateman, he's also a 4,800 salary in the flex. Like, so that is super expensive for a guy who hasn't done like anything. He is a type of guy where you're paying up to be contrarian. And
Yeah,
I just don't.
You're hoping for a big game out of nowhere, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would much rather put, you know, money on Beckham, who has a, you know, like a track record with multiple teams now. You know, like over Bateman for sure.
Yeah, he's probably worth being in the player pool tonight. ODB for sure.
Yeah. So, Keg, let's try something a little bit different. Maybe if we take Chase out, we put Burrow in. I'm trying to get us to Tyler Boyd. If we take
Yeah,
Tucker out.
I think Boyd could have a sneaky big game tonight, man.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think like if you do this, like this gives you like 3,600 left. That puts you in that same range we were looking at earlier, where you can get in like the Bengals D or Irv Smith or Tanner Hudson or Nelson Aguilar. So, like it's a direction that you can go. If you if you think that Jackson, maybe Jackson underperforms. If we took out Jackson and put in Chase in this build, where would that put us? I mean, you could swap out Jackson for Chase if you wanted to in a build like this. But there's ways to play around with the build tonight. But like just on the general notes from Keg and myself, we both like Tyler Boyd. I think we both think that it's going to be a higher scoring game than maybe the total suggests.
Yep.
More of a back and forth. We both like the Baltimore running game tonight. And who you use depends on your script. And Keg, who's your favorite play on the slate, would you say?
Mark Andrews.
Same here. So we're on the same page there. And Mark Andrews is looking at a sub 10% ownership, according to the projections that I see for the captain spot. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So don't sleep on Andrews tonight. Like if there's a big takeaway tonight that I see, Keg, it's we're both on Andrews, and Andrews could have a pretty big game tonight.
Yeah, and we both think that this game could shoot out for the first time on a Thursday night in a while.
Yeah, definitely the most interesting game that we've seen on Thursday this season. Now, Keg, is there anything else that you want to try?
You're the DFS guy, my friend. It's up to you.
Let's see. So let's say maybe the Baltimore run game. Let's see what Gus Edwards' ownership is real quick, because we'll see if it's worth trying a Gus Edwards lineup. Looking at 2.5% ownership in the captain with Gus. Now, there's a lot of talk on this Mitchell guy, which is kind of taken away from Gus Edwards, and Gus Edwards is priced up a bit. So let's try putting him in the captain. We put him in the captain. I think Jackson and Andrews are having some success in that scenario. And Chase, I like Chase because of just his upside, and he's just going to be the most heavily used guy on that Bengals side. That leaves us with 44.50 per guy left. If we wanted to put in McPherson, that leaves us with 4,900. That leaves you in a position. Oh, go ahead.
The only thing I don't like about the McPherson, like in a script where Baltimore is controlling the game and doing their thing, I think at that point, since he's probably not looking to kick field goals in the second half of that game, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe Tucker over him.
Tyler, what you said?
Yeah, I like the Boyd angle too, because at least in this script, if Burrow is playing from behind, you have his number one and number two weapon in there probably, right? So you're probably going to get paid out there. And then you have in order for Baltimore to get up big, Edwards, Lamar, and Andrews are probably going to have to do their thing, right? So I like that lineup. I don't know what you plug in the final spot, but I like that from a Baltimore, controls the game script.
Yeah. Now playing around with this lineup a little bit, Keg, like we talked about it, looking at Lamar Jackson's stat line recently. 15 points, 12 points, 11 points as far as DraftKings points. He's had a few other weeks where he had low outputs. He had 8 points in week 1. He had 11 points against Pittsburgh, 12 points against Pittsburgh. Now, if they take a lead, maybe Gus Edwards is getting the touchdowns. Mark Andrews is getting PPR points. Maybe we take Jackson out. Maybe Jackson doesn't have enough to support it, but they have taken the lead. And we got Chase and Boyd in there. Let's throw in Burrow.
I like it
for that correlation. That leaves us with 2,900. That leaves us in that Justice Hill territory. Tanner Hudson, we could add a fourth guy for Burrow to throw to.
A couple more options you got at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that's another kind of direction you could go there. If you wanted to swap out Boyd for Irwin, that would leave you with 5,300. That leaves you with Tucker. Oh no, it's 100 short of Tucker, but it leaves you with Beckham. Yeah, Tucker would be it leaves you with the Ravens D too. The Ravens D. Yeah, that would be good in a build like this because it's like, the D is getting them into better field position and setting them up for those Gus Edwards and Mark Andrews touchdowns as opposed to Lamar maybe having like too big of a impact on the game.
How does taking the Ravens defense square up with Burrow and Chase and Irwin being in that lineup? You don't mind that?
No, I don't mind that just because like in Showdown, like if we have the Ravens D in there, right? We have the Ravens D in there because they're taking away points from Lamar Jackson as opposed to taking away points from Joe Burrow. Like if the Ravens D is in there, maybe they've scored a defensive touchdown. And maybe they've just set them up with a bunch of good field position, which gives Lamar less opportunity to rack up yards and stuff, like either on the ground or through the air. But Andrews could get a touchdown in that situation. Gus Edwards could get a touchdown and justify them being in there. But as far as Burrow, Chase, and Irwin, like if Burrow's thrown a couple pick sixes in this game, or he's thrown a few interceptions and been sacked a bunch, maybe like Burrow's been sacked like 6 times in this game or something like that, maybe had a fumble.
Right.
That they can still rack up a bunch of points, not worrying about the Bengals in catch-up mode, putting up a bunch of points, or at least a bunch of fantasy points against the Ravens because the defense versus offensive players, it can work both ways, right? It can work in that the offensive players are forced to the air more, where they can make more mistakes, which adds to the the defense ability to put up more fantasy points. But it also can work against the defense in as far as when the offense on the other side scores points, obviously the defense points go down. But there's a balance there, like where once those points are out, like you basically, when you put the Ravens in this lineup, you're not counting on them to have any points from preventing the offense from scoring. Basically, you're putting the defense in there because you think that they're going to make some explosive plays tonight and score a touchdown somehow and get a decent number of sacks and maybe a couple turnovers tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. Other one that would work in this build would be Evan McPherson. Like if you didn't want to go with the Ravens, like Evan McPherson works in this build too. Because it's like Chase isn't in the captain, Burrow's not in the captain. Why aren't they in the captain? Because they're racking up the yards. Maybe Burrow throws a touchdown to Irwin, but he doesn't get one to Chase. But Chase has a bunch of PPR points. And then maybe when they get in the red zone, they're getting stalled by the Ravens, and McPherson is coming in there and scoring the field goals. That's going to leave $1,300 on the table, and that'll get you different there. It'll get you different in that you don't have Lamar in the lineup, and Lamar is going to be the most popular option tonight apart from Chase. So it leaves you different in a few different spots there. And gives you an opportunity to put it together a game script that actually makes a little sense too.
Yeah, I like it. Makes sense to me, my guy.
Awesome, brother. Well, Keg, again, like make sure to subscribe over to Nuke the House over on YouTube. Keg, going to be doing a show tonight?
Yep, we'll be live at 8:05 for the entire game. We'll be live betting on Nuke the House YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check that show out. Be leaving money on the table if you don't, because Keg is always up on units, and he just crushes with these live betting shows too. And
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have on in the background too, like when you're watching the game and you got your DraftKings app open and you're looking for those live bets. So it's like a perfect situation.
Yeah, that's when I started it, man. I wanted it to basically be a betting companion for people that were home alone, that love to bet on sports. Maybe they don't have their friends over, but they can come and hang with me for a few hours every night. That was the whole reason why I started it. Maybe I could help people become slightly better and more profitable, and at least they had somebody to hang out with and bet the games with. That's why I go live so much.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always good stuff. And make sure you subscribe over to Heat Seekers Sports, the YouTube channel, and hit like on this video. If I get 15, I'll be able to put up a shorter video later on after I've done a little bit more digging into maybe some of the last minute news and everything. And otherwise, good luck, guys, and I'll see you on the weekend.